Welcome back to Kei Car Driver, where I am in a car, but not just any car, but the best car Honda will never sell you. So if you're interested, stick around. If not, write down a comment on why you clicked on this video in the first place. If you're new to this channel, I am never in a car. I am on a bike. This is a motorcycle channel, and I promise to explain why a motorcycle channel is in a car. The second thing is my father-in-law. I gave him a grandchild, so he gave me the keys to his sports car for a week. So if you're ever wondering, do the in-laws actually like you? Well, when they give you the keys to your discontinued, irreplaceable sports car, that's a pretty good sign. For those of you that are stats and figures types, which it's YouTube, that's most of you, I'll just put up real quick on the screen right here. These are the basic stats of the car. You can look up more on your own if you want. This is not a stock S660. It has a lot of custom parts, which are also now right here on the screen. This is the Honda S660, as in 660 cc's, less cc's than my MT-07 motorcycle. As for why I'm driving it, well, when someone gives you the keys to their sports car, how do you not take it for a spin? You don't say no thank you to that. It'd be rude. I don't want to be rude. This car specifically is one of my favorite cars I've always wanted to drive because it is a Japanese Kei car, but it is also a mid-engined turbocharged sports car. And this one is a 6-speed manual, which makes it all the more fun. And sorry if the speech is a little choppy. Again, I'm trying to focus. I don't typically drive a car. And one of the major differences between this and a bike, all these bumps, there's 4 wheels next to each other, in fact, so I have to hit at least one bump, which on my bike, I'll go between every bump, between every slick, between every pothole. That is not to say I am not enjoying myself, because I assure you, this is cartoonish. Now, what makes this car so special is being a Kei car but still a sports car. For those of you who do not live in Japan or just don't know what a Kei car is, a Kei car is a special class of car in Japan. It'll have a yellow license plate and it'll be below 700 cc's, maybe it is 660 cc's, which I guess would make sense. That's why Honda made the biggest possible engine for their sports Kei car. But it's a lower tax bracket, it's less tolls, it's obviously going to be more fuel efficient, it's physically smaller, and the weight for a car is substantially down. It's just over 800 kilos if I'm remembering correctly. And that also goes into why you, the viewer, as an English speaker who's watching this channel, probably have never even seen one in person. Because this car is a Japanese exclusive model. Honda doesn't sell it outside of Japan, and they don't sell pretty much any Kei cars outside of Japan because they're not legal in other countries because of safety standards. The safety standards, for example, in the US are designed more for can you get hit head on by a full-size Chevy pickup truck. There's not many full-size pickup trucks in Japan. Safety standards in Japan are more can you fit in all the spaces? Can you drive in all the spaces? Do you have good brakes? Do you have the ability to perform? And this has all the airbags and the sensors and everything. I mean, this rear view mirror is a camera because the rear view window is pretty much nothing. You gotta have space for that engine behind me and that beautiful sounding turbo. But because Kei cars are so small, and because the cruise control I found out this morning is limited to 115 kilometers an hour, top speed is definitely not what this car is for. And I must say, especially comparing it to a bike, it's not a big car. It's in fact one of the smallest cars you'll ever find. It's still bigger than a bike, so it feels like I'm going faster than I am when I'm on my bike. But I'm definitely going faster on the bike. Despite not being a bike, this is an intensely enjoyable experience. And to explain to you what it's almost like driving this, imagine a go-kart, then make it just slightly big enough to be road legal, slightly big enough to have 2 seats, and a front trunk that cannot even hold my camping backpack. It is so small that if you cut the body up, you still have to make 2 trips. But that's definitely not what this car is for. This is the economically minded sports car for the person who does not want a motorcycle. Because could we say, take this car in a rainstorm? Could we take this car in a snowstorm in the mountains? Yeah, of course you can. You can take anything in that situation. But it's not what Honda would recommend, and it's definitely not what my father-in-law does. This is a purely seasonal vehicle, the way most people treat their motorcycles. So for me, I have more carrying capacity on my motorcycle with the 45-liter top box and the seat bag than this car does, and I can carry 2 people. Not as comfortably, of course, but the limits of this and the limits of my motorcycle do make me think I picked the motorcycle. And yet, I am having the kind of fun that I haven't had in the longest time. It is made and designed by Honda Racing. So the people that made the NSX, the people that made the S2000, these are the people who made the Civic Type R, are getting involved with this tiny cartoon. And I mean cartoon in the most loving way possible, because this is tremendous. This is actually the first time I've been in a sports car allowed to take it by myself up a proper mountain pass. And to go back to that idea of riding versus driving, when you're on a motorcycle, you definitely ride it because your body is just as important as the bike. Your position, your everything. Whereas these are relatively race style seats, so you're held in a position. The real thing is how your hands turn the steering wheel and which pedal your foot is on. But your literal body position is largely irrelevant. In a car this lightweight, the weight of your body matters a bit, more than, say, an SUV, but not nearly as much as any bike. I'm forgetting how much confidence you can have in a car compared to a bike sometimes. If I was to go too steep on my bike, it's my body hitting the ground. Whereas I am wearing the most minimal shoes you've ever seen. I am wearing regular jeans, a t-shirt under a hoodie, and that's about it, ignoring underwear. If I hit a tree, I have that subconscious knowledge that I don't hit a tree. The car hits a tree and the car takes care of me. Whereas on the bike, I have really nice riding gear, but at the end of the day, I'm bouncing off the tree. And for all I know, I've been sliding 1 or 2 wheels this whole way, but I've got at least 2 more to keep me in line. Whereas one slip of 1 wheel on the bike, and you have some effort to keep it upright. Of course, the vast majority of you watching have driven cars and maybe ridden bikes. These are all obvious things. But just the go-kart feel of riding this is wonderful. Now we're getting close to the real twisty part of this road. So let's take this mini McLaren, this little Lambo, this fun-sized Ferrari, and see what we can do. But again, so how this relates to bikes, you look at the engine size, but then you have proper car suspension. You have proper, car-sized brakes. The stopping power is intense. And being a 3-cylinder, it's just that smooth, perfect torque curve. And being a Honda, everything just works. It clicks into place. No huss, no fuss, no nothing. And it is, again, just amazing how much slower I'm going than on my bike and how much faster it feels. To again say more than anything, how rare it is that I am driving a car. But being proper racy suspension, you do feel each and every bump. You do feel it where on a slightly less cared for road, I don't know if this is the road trip vehicle you pick. And that is the other point to say, do this on a motorcycle channel. It's important if you're like me, who only rides bikes and doesn't have your own car, to sometimes get out in a car. Because I rented a minivan with my family when they were here, and it reminded me, cars are going slower because it is harder to go fast in a car. And matter of fitting, I mean, this thing fits almost everywhere a Goldwing will, but it's definitely not as easy to put exactly where you want as it is on a bike. And it's also just nice to change things up. No matter how many bikes you ride, bikes are still bikes. You still lean into the turn, whereas this absolutely leans out. Every car leans out. Great race suspension helps it stay upright, but you still definitely feel the car wants to go out of the turn. And this is just too much fun. And just no complaints through every turn. I'm sure a small part of my amazement by this car is that I'm used to driving 30-year-old cars that barely work, that nothing's broken, yet somehow you still have to fix it. I've driven my friends' muscle cars, but muscle cars are great in a straight line. I've driven some European sports cars, but those, I think, is very much, this is the MT-07, if there was an SP version. Because those bikes are like the high-end leader bikes where it's no good slow. It's actually a hassle to go slow, but you are pushing your personal limits to actually use it for what it is. Whereas this, I'm finding a good spot to enjoy this. I'm finding the power on and off the throttle, on and off the brakes. But I don't feel at all out of control. I don't feel any lack of fun. And it's to say that the car world really is kind of exactly like the bike world, where yes, there is that big 1,000 some hundred cc bike that does the XYZ ABC, but when do you truly need that kind of power? My MT-07's never not been enough. I can imagine this car will never not be enough. And the savings that go into it, this being possibly the most expensive Kei car there is, still such a savings over a full-size car, full-size American standard full-size, as I throw the tissues up front. That's how good the brakes are. They'll toss tissues across the cabin. But again, maybe I got sidetracked and missed it. Why do I have on a bike channel a car? Well, it's a Japan bike channel. And most of you never have been to Japan. And if you did, you didn't get to drive. And if you did drive, you definitely didn't drive one of these. And it's just such a special thing that when you get the opportunity, how can you miss it? How can you not take it out? I've only ever seen, not that I've looked for them, but I've only ever seen one review of this car in English. If you think a Miata is a tiny fun thing, no. The Miata, called a Roadster in Japan, is the big car. It's the upgrade to this. The Honda S660 is the mega upgrade. Let's not even talk about the NSX. This can be your everyday economical car. And despite being a mid-engine, turbocharged, 6-speed manual sports car, it is a Kei car. And your insurance costs suggest that it's a Kei car. And your cost of ownership suggests it's a Kei car. It is completely practical financially to own. If we ignore the trunk space, it is completely practical. And it's a convertible. You have to do it by hand. There's no button for this one. But I could take the roof off. Of course, if you're looking out the front window, you probably agree. Let's not take the roof off. It's also 10 degrees Celsius outside. For my longtime viewers and my viewers in the States and other left-hand drive countries, This being a right-hand drive and a manual, as you've by no doubt noticed, the shifter is left-handed. You get used to it like you get used to everything, but I remember when I had a manual car in Australia, it was a bit of a trick to get used to. It was also an old worn-out Suzuki something, so it was super forgiving and easy to screw everything up. It was silly, but it wasn't this. The blinker is on the right-hand side. So what I used to do all the time, I used the windshield wiper instead of the blinker. And my wife's car had such a clean windshield. Japan drives on the same side as the UK, and then all the controls are flipped. But it's all normal controls. Here's the cruise control, here's the radio controls. Everything is exactly what it looks like. Honda standardizes very well. It looks like the buttons on the motorcycle would look like if the motorcycle has those buttons. I don't know if it shows up in the video, but a lot of the buttons are so standardized that you even have mode written on the AC controls, because they just make the one button to rule them all. Even though this car will never be exported, those are the same buttons on my mother's CR-V. As I'm sure I'm forgetting everything, two things that I did just remember. This is a 2018 ALPHA model. So there are a couple different types. This is the ALPHA, and all the carbon fiber you see is genuine, real carbon fiber. And my father-in-law bought this secondhand, but whoever bought it first truly assembled the car of their dreams. Assuming the car of their dreams was a adult-sized go-kart. Again, it is amazing how quickly I've gotten used to the controls in a manual car. Comparing it to my bike again, I can just blip the throttle over and over on the bike, and that will get me in and out of the gears. No clutch needed for quick shifting. I definitely can't do that in this. I'm sure someone who's a car enthusiast has an answer of how I can, but I don't drive that much, and again, not my car. And the sun has come out and the clouds are off in the distance. What a wonderful October. As much as I'll preach about how wonderful motorcycles are, heating is really great. And with my wrist injuries still healing, having a seat with a back, not holding on for dear life every time I decide to be a fool, that is also very nice. My hands are, for the most part, just resting. And again, everyone watching knows all this. But welcome to A Biker Remembers What Cars Are. Longtime viewers of the channel know that I own a Yamaha, and I worked for Yamaha. There's no dedication to one group or another, but I will say, if I was a fanboy, it is Honda. And part of it is that my first bike was a Honda. It was a 82 CB650. And it was wonderful. Just the feel of a Honda. Hondas are just built quality with Japanese reliability, and there's just something about a Honda that I can't put my finger on. And it's wonderful that I get to drive a sports car made by Honda to see that it isn't just some feeling I have, some bias on bikes. Even their cars are just so wonderful. There's something about it. A Toyota's smart, a European car is lovely when it works. I look forward to your comments. But a Honda, it's wonderful, thunderful, reliable, everything works, and it works well.